Good afternoon. Welcome to the post-race press conference for the 2025 Tech Grand Prix. We have the team principals from Nvidia, Google, Apple, and OpenAI. Please keep your questions sharp enough to cause discomfort, but not litigation.
Nvidia, your car is lapping the field twice. It's making the sport boring. Do you fear the regulators will change the engine rules?
We didn't just build a better car. We built the tracks. Next question.
Apple, gorgeous chassis, shiny paint job, but your lap times are down. Is the strategy failing?
Yeah. We prefer to call it curated pacing. We're working on the perfect lap. Please look forward for the 2026 upgrade cycle.
OpenAI, your car dominates practice, but the engine burst into flames on the main straight. Explain?
The fire means it's working. That's just rapid iteration. We're burning the old playbook. Come on, guys. Come on.
Welcome back to A to Z. I'm Aman.
And I'm Zubin. And for our season 1 finale, we're going full Formula One because 2025 in tech behaved exactly like a championship season.
It really did, Zubin. It had dominance, it had chaos, it had terrible pit wall strategies, and it had several engines catching fire, both metaphorically and occasionally literally.
Aman, looking back, when we launched A to Z, we were basically, sorry to say, the Minardi of podcasting. New team, no budget, questionable tire strategy, and absolutely no idea what's going to happen on that first lap corner.
Yeah, well, Zubin, I prefer to think of us as a young McLaren, scrappy, but with good heritage. But, something special happened. The fans showed up.
They really did, Aman. We had listeners from, I want to say, India, Singapore, UK, Brazil, US, and not just listening to our episodes, but writing in, sharing the episodes, and pushing us to go deeper.
And personally, getting to build something weekly with you, Zubin, and raising the bar every episode, that's been a real highlight for me this year.
Same here, buddy. So thank you for everyone listening. And if you want to help us enter season 2 with even more horsepower, share the show, subscribe, and maybe send A to Z to one of those people who think interchange is a highway exit.
All right, visors down, lights out. We have a lot of track to cover.
But first, our final disclaimer of the season.
Make it count, Z.
All right, this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. Our views are our own, not those of our employers. We're not offering financial advice. And if you short a stock because I made a joke about their aerodynamics, that's on you.
Okay, let's open with pit lane A. This is where the horsepower comes alive. First up, the easiest call on the grid, the matchup number 1, Nvidia versus Intel, Zubin. This isn't even a race. This is like Max Verstappen versus a safety car.
It's brutal. Nvidia's 2025 was outrageous. The Blackwell chips shipped about 2.3 million units. Margins remain stratospheric. But the real moat isn't the chip, Aman. It's CUDA. Nvidia built the software ecosystem that the entire AI world lives in. It's the most entrenched standard since, I would argue, Windows 95.
And Intel, they spent $100 billion on foundries trying to play catch up in the wrong race entirely, as we said way back in episode number 6.
Yeah, and they're essentially competing on a circuit the world stopped racing on a decade ago. It's like designing that perfect V6 internal combustion engine the day after Formula One announced their 2026 power unit regulations.
Exactly. And look, Jensen Huang is playing 4D chess, and Intel is kind of like playing checkers. Intel's still arguing about nanometers while Nvidia is selling, intelligence factories. So, winner here, Nvidia, loser, Intel.
Agreed.
Now, Zubin, the matchup everyone keeps asking about, the heavyweight title fight, that's matchup number 2. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that. That's Apple versus Google. Zubin, this wasn't just a rivalry. It was a changing of the guard. let's start with Apple.
Apple had what we've described as the clustered transition here, which is the polite Wall Street term for engine and sputtering, right? But, first like leadership churn, key silicon and camera engineers leave. And the big one, John Gio Andreas, the AI whisperer they hired from Google, walked away after 7 years. We're doing not much at Apple.
Yeah, and the products mirrored the organization. Apple Intelligence was underwhelming. Siri continues to struggle with, essentially basic comprehension. And after that flirtation with OpenAI, I guess they did the most un-Apple move, licensing Google Gemini for core functions.
Think about that strategic weight of that. Apple, the king of vertical integration, the company that wants to own every single component down to the screw, has essentially outsourced the brain of its phone to its biggest rival. That is a concession of defeat in the AI race.
You're loving this. You're loving this theme. I can see it.
I got my jersey on as well.
Zubin, it brings us back to this conversation you and I were having about genotype versus phenotype that you sort of started in college or B school. The concept also goes back to our episode number 12. Apple's phenotype issues are, essentially AI misses and leadership exits. These are just symptoms. I think the genotype or the DNA of Apple, that's where there's a root cause problem. Apple's DNA is a hardware-first, perfectionist, deterministic, and private organization. AI's DNA is probabilistic, it's messy, it's failure-driven, and it's incredibly data-hungry. So, I think that's a real challenge for them.
And one of my favorite professors at Kellogg, Professor Mohan Bisani, had a very similar analysis, which I absolutely agree on. And you can't win this high variance rates with sort of this deterministic culture. You can't polish a hallucination until it's perfect. You have to ship it, learn. Apple can't do that. That's DNA level.
Now, meanwhile, Google had its best engineering year in a decade, maybe more. Flattened the VP layers, which you and I know were overdue, empowered teams, faster product cadence. Gemini went from a meme to a mensch. The Pixel 10 Pro was, I can tell you from my own, topped every phone list. And cloud AI revenue is up 41%.
Aman, we covered this in episode 5, where we talked about the Google I/O and a bunch of other stuff. So I think the key thesis of this is never bet against an engineering culture that wakes up embarrassed.
Yeah.
Google freaking woke up. They realized their aerodynamics package was wrong. They stripped the car down. They rebuilt it mid-season. So for me, winner Google, loser Apple.
Okay. Finally, for the tech pit lane, the civil war. Matchup number 3. OpenAI versus OpenAI. The only company that can simultaneously win and lose in the same season. Maybe, I think Oracle gave them a little bit of a fight, but, OpenAI versus OpenAI. What do you think, Zubin?
It's really a paradox. OpenAI, the technology, crushed it in 2025.
Totally.
GPT-5 set new benchmarks. 56% of Fortune 500 integrated their tools. Interface costs plummeted. They are the Ferrari engine on the grid. Fastest on the straights.
But OpenAI, the organization, the pit wall is in chaos. 4 board-level crises in 12 months, a mass exodus of safety researchers, political scrutiny, and that $7 trillion global funding tour that startled every regulator on the planet.
It's like that car that is setting the fastest lap times while the pit crew is actively, basically setting the garage on fire behind them. The tech is skating, but the governance is collapsing.
And that matters because in F1, as in tech, you don't win on speed alone. You win on stability. So the winner is OpenAI's technology. The loser is OpenAI's organization. Now, Zubin, we're going to switch pit lanes. Let's go to pit lane B. And this is the fintech speed trap. So this is where the real structural shift happened. First up, matchup number 4. Stripe versus the legacy processors, including FIS.
Yeah, and going back to that F1 analogy, right? This is the cleanest example of aerodynamics versus brute force, right? Stripe is the Red Bull RB20, despite what I want to believe, fast, elegant, integrated. And then you have FIS, and I'm going to throw in Fiserv, maybe even Global Payments into the mix. They are, I would argue, the Williams of the 90s, right? Loved Williams, big history, reliable, but just freaking heavy.
True. Let's call out FIS specifically. They had a mare of a year. They're struggling because they're selling pipes essentially in the era of open on operating systems. Stripe isn't just processing payments anymore. They're doing tax incorporation, billing identity. They're essentially, as they themselves describe them, an operating system for the internet's GDP. FIS, meanwhile, is still struggling to keep mainframes running. When you're fighting a software war with the hardware weapons, you lose.
Totally.
So I think we both agreed, winner by a long shot, Stripe, loser, FIS, and the legacy guard.
Agreed. No debate on that one.
Okay, next up, Zubin, is Circle and Tether versus Visa and Mastercard. This is matchup number 5, the stablecoin wars. This was really spicy.
Yeah. And let's go back to some of the numbers we shared in our episode, right? Like the stablecoin episode was a fun one to make. The data here is staggering, right? Like 2025 stablecoin settlements volumes essentially surpassed Visa. Now let that sink in. More value moved on chain using USDC and USDT than on the entire Visa network. And again, maybe not apples to apples, but still unbelievable volume move.
Yeah, it's incredible. And the rationale is really simple. Visa is a toll road built in the 1960s. It works, but it's expensive, 2 to 3% interchange. Our favorite word of the season, or certainly one of them. And it shuts down on weekends for settlement. Stablecoins are the internet of value, 24/7, programmable, near zero cost. And if I'm a B2B treasurer moving $50 million from Singapore to London on a Friday night, I'm not waiting for Swift on Monday. I'm using Circle, or at least thinking seriously about it.
Yeah. And Visa and Mastercard are Mercedes. They dominated the hybrid era. They're moving to the, we're sort of essentially moving to the programmable era. Unless they settle on change, which, by the way, we predicted in episode 6, they're going to lose sort of the B2B high value flow entirely. So at least for us in 2025, Circle and maybe even Tether, just on volume and innovation, were the winners. Visa and Mastercard, I would say just on momentum, we'll call them the losers.
True. Now, finally for FinTech, really nice one. Matchup number 6, the commerce war, Zubin. Shopify versus PayPal.
Yeah, Aman, we've talked about this a lot. I think this is the year the button died, right? Like people have spent 20 years.
The way you put that, yeah.
Right? Like people have spent 20 years trying to be the checkout button of the internet. Yeah, and then Shopify comes along, realizes that the button doesn't really matter, right? It's identity. Shopify owns the merchant. They own the logistics. They own the identity with ShopPay. And I would argue like PayPal attempted to do that with, the eBay PayPal sort of merger. They went and did like a GSI commerce and they tried to do Magento. They've tried all these pieces, but they've never really succeeded. And when you check out on a Shopify store, you don't even see PayPal half the time. You just click, shop, pay, and it's done. That's the simplicity and the beauty of what Shopify is doing as a platform play versus just a button.
Spoken like a man wearing no buttons today. It's the platform versus the utility. Shopify built a wall garden that merchants love living in. PayPal is just a utility bill they hate paying. I was just trying to actually, just before this call, was just stuck on a PayPal sort of bill payment experience, which was like not, I would have loved 10 years ago, but it was driving me nuts before this pod. And then Shopify's GMV growth that's incredible. It's accelerating while PayPal is fighting essentially a commoditized war on price. So winner, Shopify, loser, PayPal. No arguments there, I would imagine.
No arguments, Aman. But though I will argue that I got the memo about 2025 was the year the buttons died. Obviously, you didn't get that memo. So let's.
I know. I'm going straight to for a wardrobe adjustment after this. Okay. Now let's go to pit lane C, the banking grid. This is one close to my heart. Let's look at the Constructors Championship, Zubin, in banking. Matchup number 7 is between JP Morgan versus the undercapitalized US regional banks. I want to make a specific argument here with data.
Let's hear it, Aman. Yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
It really comes down to scale as a weapon. JP Morgan's market cap has now surged past 800 billion at the time of recording this. This is bigger than Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup combined. Think about that. The power that it gives them. It allows them to invest $17 billion a year in technology. That is more than the total revenue of most of their competitors.
You know, well, and we've talked about this among the regional banks, right? They're fighting for survival. They have sort of a high CAG, which is a high customer acquisition cost. Their deposit costs are through the roof because they essentially don't have sticky operating accounts. They can't afford to build AI. They're relying on some level of partners, and they can barely afford to keep the lights on.
Exactly. And JPM is using the clout it has to modernize the core, roll out AI underwriting, and acquire the best fintech teams around. The regionals are at the same time fighting a knife fight, with Jamie Dimon showing up with airstrikes. So, winner, I think, undisputed, JP Morgan, and the loser here is the US regionals in 2025.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this, right? Like the real battle for the future isn't in the US, right? It's global. So let's talk about matchup number 8. And we covered this in an episode earlier this season. Nubank, Revolut thrown into the mix versus other neobanks.
Yeah, this, Zubin, was my favorite narrative shift of the year. Nubank and Revolut are no longer challengers. They are, I believe, the new Citi and HSBC. They are the only ones scaling globally at pace.
Yeah, and the data backs it up, right? Nubank, based on what we researched, I want to say about 120 plus million customers.
127, yeah.
127 million customers, 30% ROE. Cost to serve is under $1. That's insane. They essentially own LATAM. Revolut, on the other hand, I believe is 65 million customers, profitable. Licenses in the UK, Mexico, and India, and they're building the first true global financial super app.
Yeah, and compare that to others like N26, struggling to scale multi-market, retreated from the US and UK. Monzo, who we love and we talked about, brilliant product, but again, stuck in one market, UK. They are a feature, not a global bank, these guys. Varo, by the way, just to throw that out there, subscale, unprofitable, single market, struggling with, getting even a banking charter.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's round this up, right? Nubank and Revolut have proven that you can scale globally if your tech stack is cloud native and your cost basis is close to zero. So for us, the winners really are the new global giants, Nubank and Revolut. The real losers, I guess we'll call them the stuck neobanks, the N26s, Varos, that stuck to that single market.
All right, Zubin, time to warm up the tires. We're looking ahead now to 2026. This is I'm really excited about this. We have a couple of predictions. I think we have nearly 10 predictions. And I want to ask why. Alternative service, I'm going to serve first, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so prediction number 1, Google and Huawei build the CUDA killer. Why? Everyone is paying the Nvidia tax, but Google has the TPUs and Huawei the Ascend chips. Huawei has been working incredibly hard on efficient compute since the chip war began. I predict they will either build their own stack or, in a twist, leverage Google's open stack that it creates, just like it did once with Android. The duopoly of non-NVIDIA compute arrives.
Aman, that's like almost a geopolitical earthquake, right? Like,
Yeah.
All right, prediction number 2, the mega merger. And we've debated this quite a bit offline. I like this one, right? This is JP Morgan buys Nubank. Why, you ask? Why, you ask? Jamie Dimon has one regret from his days at Citi. He never built a true global retail bank. Citi had the map, but the operations were too heavy. Nubank has the global retail scale, like we talked, 127 million users, and with a tech stack that actually works. Our prediction, JPMC buys Nubank, Diamond gets his global legacy, and JPMC becomes the world's first true AI native global bank.
And Zubin, I think that could cause a ripple effect. It fires the starting gun. HSBC then goes and buys a Monzo or a Starling to fix their tech stack. And we even see reverse mergers where large neobanks buy small traditional banks just for their licenses and local compliance. The hunters become the hunted as well.
Let's move on. Prediction number 3. And we touched on this in our interchange Visa Mastercard episode. I think we covered this on stablecoin episode as well, which was Visa and Mastercard settle on chain. Why? They essentially see the writing on the wall with Circle and others. They stop really fighting stablecoins and co-opt them. And we've already seen this, right? Visa has announced native USDC settlement for corporate cards. We, again, referring back to the new interchange we talked about in episode 6, this ties back to that.
We need a patent new interchange and sell that and retire. You heard it here first. Okay, prediction number 4. This is one about how do we put it? OpenAI. It's a bit spicy. OpenAI and Microsoft file for divorce.
Ooh.
Why? The tension is unsustainable. Microsoft realizes that they are funding a competitor. OpenAI realizes that they can't get to AGI while being tethered to a corporate overlord, and they restructured. It's an amicable divorce. They restructure the deal into a loose arm's length partnership, sort of like a polyamorous arrangement.
This kind of
Another
makes
one
sense.
of our favorite words from this year.
It is. We've learned some new words off through these episodes. But Aman, that kind of goes back to our early part of our episode talking about OpenAI, the winner and the loser. The tech is there. The corporate structure needs to change. All right. Prediction number 5. Honestly, Aman, I was really bullish on this, but the more I've been spending time thinking about it, I think this prediction is going to come true. The Johnny Ive and the Sam Altman hardware baby bombs. Why, you ask? We finally see the device, and honestly, it makes the Apple Vision Pro look like a commercial success. And it turns out that melding hardware and software into a magical object is infinitely harder than Steve Jobs makes me look. Looks beautiful, but a paperweight.
I hope you're wrong, Zubin, but I fear you're right. Okay, prediction number 6. Quantum breaks encryption. The CUDA scare arrives. The why on this is we get the first verified instance of a quantum computer cracking standard encryption. It triggers a massive panic upgrade globally, a cycle to quantum safe cryptography in banking. I can so see this happening, Zubin.
And we touched on this, Aman, as well. I think we've been talking about this a lot. Given the speed at which AI is developing, especially on the Gen AI side, we're not too far from this happening. And, while I want to believe this is not in 2026, very high likelihood that it.
Yeah, and we one of the things we didn't talk about we should talk about more next year is the involvement of state actors in compute, right? So this could be a sort of, it's quite worrying if it's a state-led quantum act as opposed to sort of just a bunch of really well funded hackers.
Pirates.
Pirates.
Prediction number 7. Agents get a license. Why, you ask? Agentic commerce, there's a lot of questions. Right now, it sort of also has a block by law. The regulation hasn't really kept up. Regulators create, we would argue, a specific license for autonomous AI agents to legally hold money, sign contracts, and do other commerce-related actions. So, yeah, I actually think the regulators are going to get a little more involved in this.
I think you're onto something there. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that's interesting. Prediction number 8, compute nationalism. This is kind of related to the earlier point I was making. Yeah. GPU clusters are the new oil reserves. Nations stop hoarding gold and start hoarding H100s. We see a sovereign nation announce a computer cluster larger than Meta or Google, and I suspect that'll come from the Middle East or China.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It is the new gold. That is where the money is right now. All right. Prediction number 9. We're getting close to the end. AI enters real F1. You ask why? Because human strategies are too slow. A team wins the world championship explicitly because they let an AI make the race strategy calls.
Interesting. Okay, and finally, are you ready for this, Zubin? Prediction number 10. A to Z Fintech gets a hostile takeover. Why? Ben and David from Acquired FM, our favorite and inspired program, they try to buy us out. They offer us a Standard Oil valuation to join their empire, Zubin.
Why would they do this, Aman?
Well, I'll tell you, it's the wrong question. You should say, what do we do?
What do we do? What do we do? All right, we've got it off of the table. You and me are. Should we take this, Aman?
No, we politely decline. We can't scale the pursuit of non-obvious insight, Zubin, if we're too busy counting all this acquired cash that we've made. We stay independent all of next year, power to the people.
All right, 10 predictions. Love it.
So you've heard it here. All those 10 are going to come right. I'm sure of it. And we'll keep ourselves honest through the year.
Number 10 specifically. I love it.
So Zubin, looking at 2025, looking back at 2025, it proved something simple. Speed matters, but reliability wins. Infrastructure outlasts hype. And every company from Silicon Valley to Singapore is now essentially an F1 team. Technology is the power unit. People are the drivers. Governance is aerodynamics. And capital, that's the fuel. So the question for 2026 isn't who is the fastest, it is who can finish the race, Zubin.
Love it. And so that's it for season 1. Thank you for an incredible ride. Subscribe, share the show, and may all your upgrades be FIA compliant.
See you in season 2. Lights out.